You are here for one reason, to get jacked. And that is exactly what I'm going to help you do. No dragging, no BS ads, no beating around the bush. I have nothing to sell you. My only goal for this video is to help you build the best physique you possibly can. I entered high school as a 5'10", 140-pound string bean, and I'd played sports my entire life up to that point, but I'd never been exposed to any sort of weightlifting routine until my first season of high school football. And I remember testing our 1-rep maxes on the bench and the squat, and at the time I could barely bench press 100 pounds, which is a 25 and a 2.5 on each side, and I could barely squat 135 pounds, which is 245s. And these aren't bad numbers by any means for a beginner lifter, especially at my size, but I really didn't make that much progress in my first year in the weight room. And it wasn't because of the strength program that my coach had us follow, it was because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know why I was doing it. You know, I'd show up to weights class at 7:45 a.m., exhausted, tired, annoyed, the typical emotions a 15-year-old kid would feel. And lifting weights just felt like a chore to me, and it showed in the results I was getting. And then 3 years passed, and in my junior year of playing football, we won the state championship. And after that game, everything changed. I finally decided to start taking weightlifting seriously, and I started with the same goals as you. I was a skinny kid for most of my life, and I wanted to get bigger and I wanted to get stronger, not just to attract girls, but to prove something to myself and also perform better in sports. And after watching a million David Laid videos and seeing his transformation, I finally decided it was time to drop the excuses and get after it. And so I adopted the power builder approach to lifting, where I focus on gaining strength in the core 3 lifts, which are bench, squat, and deadlift, but I also incorporated bodybuilding movements to build muscle and stuff. So basically a combination of powerlifting and bodybuilding, hence the term power building. And training with this approach brought me to my first discovery, which was the differences between training for strength and training for hypertrophy, which is building muscle. And they might seem similar, but they require different approaches. Building strength is all about increasing your ability to exert force. It sounds simple, but that's what it is. And when you train for strength, you will typically lift with heavier weights and fewer reps, like, you know, think 70% of your 1-rep max for 1 to 5 reps. And the exercises you do to train for strength are typically compound movements, which are like deadlift, squat, bench press, like the core 3 lifts. And compound movements are just movements that target multiple muscle groups. Like for the squat, it's the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, lower back. The deadlift, it's the hamstrings, the back, the calves. And then the bench press, it's the chest, triceps, and shoulders. Hypertrophy, aka building muscle, is just about increasing muscle size, and it's what makes you look jacked. And when training for hypertrophy, it's more about moderate weights with moderate reps, so like 8 to 12 reps. And for hypertrophy, you can either use compound movements like we talked about earlier, or isolation movements, which are just movements that target one specific muscle. So like bicep curls, tricep extensions, those types of movements. But before we go any further, I'm just going to give you a list of the best exercises you can do for each muscle group. For chest, we have bench press, push-ups, chest flies, chest dips. For back, we have deadlifts, pull-ups / chin-ups, rows, lat pull-downs. For shoulders, we have overhead press, lateral raises, front raises, rear delt flies, shrugs. For legs, we have the squat, lunges, leg press, Romanian deadlifts, leg curls, calf raises. For arms, we have bicep curls, tricep pushdowns, skull crushers. For abs, we have planks, Russian twists, leg raises, and bicycle crunches. And those are just a few exercises you can do for each muscle group. And you'll notice that most of them are pretty simple and they have variations that you can do for each of them. Like for the bench press, it's incline, decline, flat, but there's also barbell, dumbbell, machine, cable. The movements are mostly the same, but it's all about which variation you choose to do. Biceps, for example, will always be worked by doing some sort of curl, but you get to choose if it's a barbell, a dumbbell, a cable, whatever. So a good rule of thumb, just being able to mix it up and add variation wherever you see fit. So if you've been doing barbell curls for a while, it might be a good idea to switch it up and do some cable curls or dumbbell curls. But the biggest difference between free weights, which are barbells and dumbbells, and then cables and machines is that free weights work your stabilizing muscles. So when you're doing a bench press, you have to actually work your muscles that are holding up the bar, not just your chest. So doing just a regular barbell bench press would be a lot better for building practical strength that you can use like in a sport like football, while doing like a Smith machine or cable press would be better for just building the muscle. But for whatever training style you prefer, focusing on progressive overload is extremely important. And progressive overload just means gradually increasing the demands you place on your body over time. So imagine you started lifting weights with a 10-pound dumbbell and the most you could do is 6 reps. At first it feels challenging, but as your muscles adapt, it becomes gradually easier. Eventually you can do 8 reps. And so now what? To continue making progress, you have to make it harder for your muscles, so you go up to 15 pounds. Now it's challenging again, and you're back to doing 6 reps. And you just keep repeating this process, gradually increasing the weight as your strength improves. So if you want to get stronger or build muscle, you need to make your workouts gradually more difficult by adding weights, adding intensity, adding volume to your workouts. And this is essentially all I focused on my first couple years in the gym. I would come in, I would start my workout with one of the core 3 lifts, bench, squat, or deadlift. I would focus on building strength in one of those lifts. And then after I did that, I would go into more bodybuilding hypertrophy exercises to focus on building muscle. And I used the classic push-pull legs split that you might have heard of before. On push days, I would target my pushing muscles, which were my chest, triceps, shoulders. On pull days, I would target my pulling muscles, which are my back and biceps. And then on leg days, I would target my legs, which are just quads, hamstrings, calves. On push days, I would start with heavy bench press. On pull days, I would start with heavy deadlifts. And on leg days, I would start with heavy squats. And then after most of these workouts, I would throw in 1 to 2 ab exercises at the end, like a hanging leg raise or a plank. And each week I would do 2 push days, 2 pull days, 2 leg days. So 1 rest day per week. And although I made a ton of good progress with this split, I do not think it is the most optimal. Eventually, I became so obsessed with getting as big and as strong as possible that I kind of slipped into living an unhealthy lifestyle. I would essentially eat whatever foods I wanted to because all I was concerned about was eating as many calories as possible. And I also would avoid cardio because I was confused and I was concerned that I would lose my gains, which is just dumb. And really, I was neglecting my long-term health to focus on short-term gains, which is the last thing you should do. And the real reason I avoided cardio so much was not because I really thought it would ruin my gains. It was because I was scared. I was scared of confronting my pathetic cardio. I knew that I could not run more than 3 miles without feeling like I'm gonna throw up. And instead of facing this weakness head on, I just buried it underneath more weights. And sure, I looked big and strong, but was I really healthy? Probably not. And this is kind of when I realized that looking jacked is kind of pointless if you can't actually perform at a high level. Building strength, building muscle, building cardio are all pieces of the puzzle. And you cannot just hammer away at one and ignore the rest, because I tried that and it does not work. Cardio is really the biggest factor that determines how you feel on a daily basis. And if you're a skinny guy, doing cardio might actually scare you, because it scared me. But I promise you, integrating cardio into your routine is one of the best things you could possibly do. I'm telling you, when I first integrated cardio into my routine, everything improved. My lifts improved, I felt better, I looked better, and I could finally run a few miles without feeling like I'm gonna pass out. But the key is integrating cardio in a way that complements, not competes with, your weightlifting routine. And to do this, I started lifting 3 days per week and use the other 3 for like long runs and sprints. And it sounds weird and it sounds crazy, but I have never looked and I've never felt as good as I do right now. But not all cardio is equal. There are different ways to train it. When you train for endurance, you're essentially training how long you can run or how long you can go without getting tired. So like when you run a marathon, that requires endurance because you're required to run a long period of time without stopping. Stamina is all about how much energy you have after a short burst of activity. So if you're playing like basketball or soccer or football, you need a lot of stamina to keep running fast and making quick moves without getting tired. And if the concept of cardio is new to you, just start by adding a couple sessions per week. You can dedicate 3 days of the week to lifting weights, building strength, building muscle, then use the other 3 to go on some runs or do some sprints to build endurance and stamina. And if it's too much, you can scale it back, or if you can handle more, add another day. And you can run all the miles and lift all the weights you want, but if your nutrition is not on point, you're selling yourself short. But the tricky part about nutrition is that you cannot always tell how it's affecting you until you see the difference yourself. For the longest time, all I cared about was calories. Calories are what your body uses for energy, and the amount of calories you eat per day will determine if you lose weight or gain weight for that day. A good thing to remember is that 3,500 calories is equivalent to 1 pound. So if over the course of a week, you ate 500 calories over your caloric maintenance, which is just the amount of calories your body needs to maintain its current weight, you would gain 1 pound because 500 times 7 is 3,500. 3,500 calories is a pound. And lots of people like tracking their food and tracking their calories, but to be honest, unless you're morbidly obese and you really need to lose weight, I don't think it's that important. Because for me, it just made everything more difficult. And so you might not want to hear this, but if you want to gain weight, you simply need to eat more food than you currently are eating. And if you want to lose weight, you simply must eat less food than you are currently eating. But then of course there are the 3 main macronutrients, which are proteins, carbs, and fats. And proteins are just things like meat, eggs, dairy, and typically you want to consume around 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And then carbohydrates are also really important for energy and recovery, but typically shoot for like complex carbohydrates like pasta and oatmeal. Fruits are a great option as well. Fats are also important for hormone production, even the ones that are helping to build muscle. So avocados, nuts, olive oil are all good, healthy fat options. But the most important thing is to pay attention to how your body responds to certain types of foods and adjust your diet accordingly. If one food that someone likes makes you feel awful, don't eat it. Just try to be aware of what you're putting into your body and how it actually makes you feel. Hydration is just as important with all of this as well. You should always try to be drinking as much water as you possibly can throughout the day. And I recommend just having a water bottle on you at all times. So like when you're doing work or something, you'll just, pick it up, drink it. It's easy to get water in that way. And then rest and recovery. Everyone knows how important this is. If you're training very intense, you need to make sure that you're getting at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And that's not concrete, but it's a good starting point. Like if you're beating yourself up 5 to 6 days out of the week, those 1 to 2 days where you're not, going super hard and you're resting, those are just as important. Stretch, hit the sauna, do some foam rolling, go on a walk, things that keep your body moving but aren't super intense. And always listen to your body. If you're hurt or if you're injured, you don't have to be scared to take a day off of the gym or take a day off running. Focus on the long term over the short term always. Like if you have a shoulder injury, it's probably not the best idea to go shooting for an incline bench PR. But with that being said, just because you feel tired or you don't feel like going to the gym one day does not mean you should skip. There is a big difference between taking a day off because you physically can't go exercise and taking a day off because you don't want to go exercise. Please do not get in the habit of skipping workouts just because you don't feel like doing it. And the days you don't feel like it are the days where you really need to go work out. I promise. You really cannot underestimate the mental aspect of health and fitness. It's important to find a balance between being disciplined but also being kind to yourself. The goal of all of this should be building a lifestyle that is healthy, a lifestyle that you're proud of, not just a body. And always remember why you started, whether it's to prove something to yourself, to look better, to feel better. Always keep that fire burning. Every single rep, every single mile you run, you have to keep that in mind at all times. But now it's on you. After watching this video, you should have no more excuses. I created this video so you could put what I'm telling you into action. And it sounds corny, but the path to becoming the best version of yourself, the version that looks good, the version that feels good, it all starts with that first step. You have what it takes. All that's left is just for you to go out and do it. But I hope this video will help you become the strongest, healthiest, most jacked version of yourself you could possibly be. And if this was helpful, feel free to share it with somebody who could use this information. Until next time, stay strong, stay committed, keep moving forward. Peace out.